how could we not talk about what we saw? Donald Trump, Kamala Harris squaring off. I was a little surprised to hear it was the first time that Vice President Harris has ever met President Trump. I don't know if I was the only one surprised.
Is that real?
They said
in person?
They said on the debate stage that was the first time that they had ever met. Yeah, it's true. And I know that you and I had talked on a previous episode, on our September 10th episode, and I said, I'm not sure if I'm going to watch this whole debate, and it sort of seemed to be the same vibe in our live chat, and you and I were kind of humming and hawing over it, and I said, I'm not expecting any policy. I'm not expecting any really sort of like diligent debate here. I'm expecting more name calling and mudslinging and the like. And then I saw that it was about to begin, and I had to sit down and watch the entire thing, like I think many other people, because obviously the future of the free world is at stake right now. At least that's the way we look at it.
So you went in on the whole thing?
So I went in on the whole thing from start to finish, and I have narrowed down, I think, the moment, I think this is the moment.
You've pinpointed it.
The moment. If this we're back in the day, rest in peace, Dutchie, we might refer to this as the TSN turning point.
Okay.
I don't know if this was the turning point in the debate or in the presidential race itself. Real talkers, let me know if you agree with me, but this is the 10 to 15 seconds that I think tells the story of the entire thing.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country, and it's a shame.
Okay.
Oh, my God.
Okay. So there has been this conspiracy theory that this has been happening, and then, as you know, if you watch, the moderators jump in and they say, we did reach out to the city manager in this location, and they're saying that that's not a thing, and Trump is saying, well, I saw something on TV about it, and
we all know he saw it on social media. He doesn't. I'm sure I have heard that he watches a ton of TV, but this is something he saw on Truth Social. Let's be honest.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, okay, we're talking about like a lot of people have been saying if you were coming in from another planet, if you were an alien coming in from another planet, this was the first exposure you had either to human civilization or to this individual, to Donald Trump. You might wonder what's going on. Yeah. And there was some sort of less funny stuff, but equally as shocking. Before we move on to that, and before I make my one serious point about this, I did want to give a shout out to Noah Garfinkel on Twitter, who shortly after the debate pointed out, and Johnny, we're gonna revisit that clip there about the the alleged eating of pets by immigrants, and Noah did some digging and pointed out that a key point missing in a lot of the post-debate analysis is that Donald Trump's claim about immigrants eating pets almost perfectly syncs up to the piano in the Peanuts theme song. Yeah, so check this out. Here we go. This is pretty good.
They're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there.
So I don't know how he figured that out. I don't know how that came to his attention, but I do think that it does sync up perfectly with the piano and the Peanuts theme song. To be serious for a second, did you watch any of it? Or you watched a few of the highlights, I know.
Yeah, I watched most of the highlights, and I saw that, a lot of what was going on was I think Kamala has figured out how to flip the trigger switch on Trump, and she is so calm the whole time. But there was a moment, and I should have clipped it, but where she said something about how when people go to his rallies, they leave early.
Yeah.
They get bored. They leave early, and then that's why you see like half the stands empty. Those are these shots we're seeing on social media. And then Trump was asked a question about policy or something relating to, his convictions or something like that. And you could see on his face he'd been stewing about this comment the whole time. And as this question's being asked, I'm like, he's not even going to go to it. And he goes right back to trying to counterpoint her on saying that his rallies are boring, et cetera, et cetera. And by the time he gets around to trying to answer the question the moderator had asked him, boom, time was up. So I think Kamala, being so calm and also knowing how to trigger Trump, has kind of found this area where she can totally side swerve and prevent him from talking about policy and just show how upset he can get and how, let's all say it. We know Donald Trump has an ego. And if you can puncture that, if you can trigger that, if you can make that go haywire, I think that's going to work really well for her. But I will say that there was a lot of back and forth of I think what Andrew Knack was saying on our show yesterday. just name calling and just back and forth. You did this and you did that. I didn't hear much. I mean, there was some, but most of it was back and forth name calling and stuff like that. A lot of the policy was like drowned out. I don't think people know after this where Kamala stands. I don't think I think they already knew, but I don't think they know more about her as a person.
She sort of took, like, my assessment of her performance. I felt like, and this is me just like getting into the weeds and being a little nerdy on it, I felt like she was a little nervous out of the gates. I think that's understandable. It's the world's biggest stage. You're campaigning to occupy the world's biggest office. Kind of a loaded word to use, isn't it? Occupy. So I kind of understand that, but I felt like she was like just a tiny little bit nervous, and then I thought she very coolly hit her stride. And I think that you're going to see there's a lot of GIFs and a lot of memes that are already out there of her facial expressions and her reacting to the immigrants eating pets thing. When Trump says that, the kind of laugh that she gives came across to me. I think body language is big. And it came across as like a confident laugh, like almost like a "would you get a load of this guy" kind of a laugh. And I thought that by the end of it, I thought that she was in control. He was talking about, that Kamala Harris wants to give, gender reassignment gender reassignment surgeries to people in his words, in insane asylums. He was talking about like just all kinds of stuff.
And illegal immigrants.
It just kind of came across as a little bit more unhinged than I think people were expecting. Trump was very stoic at the beginning, right? He's got that kind of pouty look on his face. I thought that one of the real turning points, aside from the eating the pets thing, was when talk turned to abortion. And they talked about states' rights, and they started talking about access to women's health services. And we wanted to give you a little bit of what Donald Trump had to say about it, a little bit of what Kamala Harris had to say about it. This is from, obviously, the presidential debate.
They have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous governor of West Virginia, not the current governor, who's doing an excellent job, but the governor before, he said the baby will be born and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby. And that's why I did that, because that predominates, because they're radical. The Democrats are radical in that. And her vice presidential pick, which I think was a horrible pick, by the way, for our country, because he is really out of it. But her vice presidential pick says abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth. It's execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is born, is okay. And that's not okay with me.
Let's understand how we got here. Donald Trump hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. And they did exactly as he intended. And now in over 20 states, there are Trump abortion bans, which make it criminal for a doctor or nurse to provide health care. In one state, it provides prison for life. Trump abortion bans that make no exception even for rape and incest, which understand what that means. A survivor of a crime, a violation to their body, does not have the right to make a decision about what happens to their body next. That is immoral. And one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government, and Donald Trump certainly, should not be telling a woman what to do with her body.
So I think that
was
where
a big one.
She was at her absolute strongest. A couple of things on that, just strategically. She was talking to conservatives.
Yeah.
Right? She was talking to would-be Republican voters. When she starts talking about crime, right? She says a victim. And first of all, number one, very serious subject matter, very personal for people, obvious. So all of that aside, that commentary I hope is implied. But strategically in the debate, she's talking about crime. She's talking about people's rights to bodily autonomy. She mentions people of faith. She says you don't have to abandon your faith to believe, I'm paraphrasing, to believe that government, right, another key word for the libertarians, the conservatives, that government, and certainly Donald Trump should not have a say in she didn't say bodily autonomy, but in what you choose or what you do with your body. She was speaking directly to Republicans. She's not preaching to the converted. I think that she sees that they're tied, essentially, heading into this debate, and she's going to have to change some minds and sway some opinions. The question is, like, who changed more opinions last night, Donald Donald Trump or Kamala Harris. And I do think at the beginning I was kind of like, oh boy, first 3 minutes. I would say that she won the debate, and I think that the debate, I mean, I'm going to tell you the truth about something. For post-debate analysis, you know where I went?
Where?
I went straight to Fox. Because I did not want to listen to CNN pat itself on the back. I knew that ABC News, good on ABC News for presenting that debate. David Muir, Lindsay Davis, the moderators, had their hands full for sure. But I wanted to hear what they were saying on Fox.
And what'd they say?
Well, on Fox, the one guy I was listening to conceded that it was a tough debate for Trump and that Trump didn't win that debate. As a matter of fact, he was the one that said if you were an alien visitor to planet Earth and you heard this guy talking for the first time, you'd probably wonder what was going on. That was something I heard on Fox. And so I don't think that it was a ringing endorsement of Trump's performance. Question is, will it matter? He was blowing the dog whistle, speaking to his people, talking a lot about the economy, talking a ton about inflation. And Kamala Harris was saying, listen, and obviously trying to respectfully distance herself from Joe Biden too, right? She was definitely trying to do that. But talking about like the $50,000 small business loans with tax breaks and those sorts of things, trying to prove that she has a plan for the economy as well. Talked about her mom, a single mom, working hard to be able to buy a home for them. She talked about the priority of home ownership. She's talking to people in an affordability crisis. Ultimately, the question will be, is the economy the number one issue? And if it is, who do people trust more to steer it forward between those two?
Sure. And the other question is, did this move the undecideds one way or the other? And, I think we all know, like, a Trump supporter hearing that debate probably didn't flip over to Kamala Harris. But a race this close, when it's 52-48 in some places and 51-49 in others, there has to be a section of the population that is still sitting there being like, I don't know what I'm going to do yet. And did Kamala's performance make some of those undecideds float over to her? That's what we'll have to see in the coming weeks when the polls change. I love how also after when they go into the media scrum, Trump, his numbers are way different. He's like, we have it as 86-11 in some places and 79-20 in others. And I was like, those numbers don't exactly sound right. But what I'm thinking is there has to be a small section of people, even though the country's so divided right now, who are kind of sitting on the fence. And did Kamala bring those people over? I think some of those points might have. I was expecting her to be all jumbled and to fumble over her words. I think I agree with you.
You sound like you had low expectations.
But you know what no, because Trump can do that. He can irritate people. He can flip that switch 100%. As well. He can make you say stupid things. We've seen it with Biden with the golf stuff and all the crazy shit he said that pretty much buried him. But with Kamala, I think you're right. She was cool, calm, collected, and she nailed it. She absolutely nailed it. Did she win every talking point? No, but she stayed cool and she stayed calm.
Yeah, good point about the golf stuff.
That stuff was just, I think those memes are still going and they are burying him still.
That was the moment where it was like he's dragging, but Trump's dragging him down. He's dragging him down. I
will take you to the golf course and show you a thing. What are we talking?
Although at the same time, and I know this isn't always popular, I was telling you that's the stuff I love most about Trump. Like that's actually, those are the times, and I know it. There's nothing funny, like in the sense of like, I do actually think, I don't think that it's hyperbole. I do think Donald Trump does represent a threat to democracy. Yeah. I do think that, let me be clear. And there's nothing funny about that. But there's also moments where I absolutely laugh out loud. And I can understand why a lot of people think he's hilarious and why he has a lot of fans. And one of those moments was offering Joe Biden $1 million if he could, what did he say? If he could play a round of golf under 100 and carry his own bag. Like, I just thought, this is the presidential. Like what? Yeah. And so anyway, so she did. I think that she sort of like represented. She presented herself as a viable choice.
Does Kamala golf?
I don't know if she golfs. I don't have any idea actually. Thought it was pretty interesting when she pointed out that she was a gun owner.
Yeah,
right. She talked about.
I saw X light up because I wasn't watching. I was actually out at the grocery store and I was like, "What is this about?"
Yeah. Well,
Kamala owns guns.
He kept saying there were a few things that he kept saying she was going to do. He's like, she's going to shut down fracking in the United States. That became a big thing as well. Energy security is a huge conversation. Obviously, the environment is as well. But I think that for people, energy security, the economy, and the environment is kind of like a three-headed conversation, right? And so he kept saying she's going to cancel fracking. She's going to get rid of fracking. She hates fracking. She rebutted that. Whoever people believe. I mean, check out their track records. Obviously, is the number one thing you might say there. Another thing was she's going to come for your guns. She's going to take your guns. And I thought it was an interesting moment where she said, listen, like, me and my nominee for vice president, both of us are gun owners. We're not going to come for your guns. I should mention Daniel Dale. who's obviously a well-known Canadian journalist, although he's been plying his trade in the United States for a lot of years. Wall Street Journal, CNN, as a senior reporter there. Daniel Dale, where did he lie? I think Toronto Star did he start, or somewhere, maybe at the Globe. But he sort of made a name for himself. He was one of the first Canadian journalists with 1 million Twitter followers. I remember that as a fact checker during Trump's tenure as president. And Daniel Dale, now doing work for CNN, had been watching the debate last night and identified to Jake Tapper. He said there were at least 33 incidents through the debate, at least 33 untruths, lies, or false statements made by Donald Trump. He said there were at least 33. He said Kamala Harris had at least one, although I thought his wording was interesting. He said Kamala Harris made at least one false statement. They say at least because in case something slipped under the radar. He says at least one false statement. He said although there were several misleading statements. So he didn't totally take her off the hook. But if you look at the numbers 33-1, it gives you kind of a sense of who had their hands most full on the fact check.
Yeah, and when talking about fact checking, I don't know if you've seen it. We should probably play it when we come back from the break, but Kamala's team put out this incredible video of all former people who were under Trump that is now airing in the States, and I saw it last night after the debate. I think it was early in the morning, 1 a.m, but everyone's on there. It's former Secretary of Defense John Bolton. There's like a bunch of people, Mike Pence, all quoted interview clips of them saying he's not fit for president, he's doing wrong, all this stuff, and I just thought it was super powerful, the video. I was like, wow, Kamala's not even in this. This is just people who worked for Trump saying he's unfit to be president again and was unfit during his time there. So I think their team is they're on the up, and I can't wait to see the numbers in a week or two after this. And
or even this morning, yeah. I mean, I should mention Muir and Davis as well, the hosts. They did on that assertion. I know that people would expect this to be addressed during the debate when he talks about, abortions in the third term, abortions in the 9th month, or executions after birth. There was a moment in the debate where the moderator stepped in and says that nowhere in the United States is it legal to execute a baby. Like that's not something that, I mean, obviously there's infanticide in horrible situations, but that's not something that's happening as a part of healthcare delivery. That was, I think, an important point that needed to be made.
I did like how they were fact checking a lot during this debate.
Well, you do as best you can.
I think they know that the temperature of the country right now is like people are believing lies, and they were trying to fact check both of them, and they fact checked on the pets thing. He said, the city manager says this is just bullshit.
Well, they fact checked as best they can, but then Trump's like, well, no, I saw it. I mean, I saw it. No, I saw it. And another interesting moment when David Muir sort of tries to get Trump. He worked to get Trump on the record and ultimately did on where he stands on the status of that election that saw Joe Biden, take the Oval Office back for the Democrats, obviously leading to January 6th and everything else. And Trump still, to this, as you heard in the debate, does not believe, I mean, at least that's the position he's taking publicly, is that he did not lose that election. And I thought that there was, and the moderator Mr. Muir had to keep coming back to it. He had to ask him 3 or 4 times. And finally Trump just says, no, I don't acknowledge that I lost that election.
Another thing, like these clips are not working for Trump this morning. All the ones I'm seeing are negative for the Trump team. There was another moment where he was asked about healthcare and fixing healthcare. Do you have a plan? Do you have a plan? Finally, the moderator is saying, do you have a plan? Because he's skirting around the issue. And he said, well, I have concepts of a plan.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
I have concepts of a plan. I'm not
We're
the president
2 months
yet.
away. You don't have a plan for healthcare?
I actually am going to steal that line, though. The next
Concepts
time
of a plan?
What's your plan, Jesperson? I have concepts of a plan.
I have a plan for a plan.
That was my favorite Jason Kenney quote of all times. I reject the premise of your question. I have concepts of a plan. Let us know what you think about this to talk@ryanjesperson.com. We know that there's Trump supporters among our audience, and if you feel like the coverage is unfair, then I'd love to hear from you to talk@ryanjesperson.com. If you can make the argument that Donald Trump won that debate, I'd love to hear it, and we can get to that in a future episode.